Hey everybody, it's Kim, Angel Dream Crafts. Hello, and I am here with my first project for Craft Supplies for You for the month of March. And as you can see, and you've seen by the photos in the beginning, this is a very large fabric book, and the theme is fairy tales. And I used all different fairy tales in here, and it was just something I've had in my head for quite a while, and I had to sort of put it together, and I'm really happy with the result. It's a very large project. It took me quite a while to do it, but I'm really pleased with how it came out. And I've used tons and tons of things from Julie's store on here. So let's get started. Here you can see the front cover, and the front cover is actually Sleeping Beauty, so I'm hoping that you can make that out. Now, a lot of the images that I used are not your sort of typical Walt Disney images. They're very sort of traditional, old world fairy tale looking photos. And I've got the little title at the top, Fairy Tales. And these two flowers here are handmade made by me. And this is some beautiful dark blue velvet that I had in my stash. And I've used some bling from Kraftsupplies4U, and this is bling from my stash, the flowers from Kraftsupplies4U. Most of the laces, with the exception of this trim here down at the bottom, which is from a vintage wedding dress, is from Kraftsupplies4U, and this is also from the same dress. But this beautiful, gorgeous dangle trim here is from Julie's store. I just absolutely love that. I think it's like 8 inches long. It's just absolutely beautiful and amazing. I love it. So I stuffed all my images just to make them stick out a little bit more, and I started with a felt base, and there's lots of tutorials on there on YouTube about how to make a base for your fabric books, so you can just check them out on YouTube. I know that Margaret Tomaso has one, and there's quite a few other women who have done wonderful tutorials out there on YouTube. So I started with the felt base, and then I put my wedding appliques on here, the wedding lace. Then I put my image on, and I started to build around the image. And this little trim here is also from Julie's store, as is the little tiny beaded trim. Those are all from Kraftsupplies4U. And the little circle trim here around the image is also from Julie's store, as is this bridal applique. She has beautiful bridal appliques in her store. You guys got to check it out. And then, of course, there's those little castle charms that I showed you in my DT package video that I sewed on. There's a lot of hand sewing in this book. That's probably why it took me so long, but I really wanted it to be something that could be like an heirloom piece. And over here, what I did was I used more of the blue velvet, and I just kind of fanned out a piece of the velvet here. And then I added some trim from my stash and this little vial here that has a Celtic cross on it. And inside it are little gemstones, very like gemstone chips, but I was thinking, you know, sort of like a sleeping potion or something. And I used that and all these little ribbon roses in the same sort of cobalt blue color, just to pick up on the blue tones in the image. And that's basically it. I added a cameo from my stash, and every page will have like the title of the fairy tale on it, and there's all kinds of different colors and things going on the inside of the book, so I'm kind of excited to show that to you. So that's the first page. Oh, and here I just cut a little piece of lace and sort of fashioned it into a crown underneath here. And then I added just some little rhinestones from my stash, and then another little blue ribbon rose there. So I love the blues, and these are sari ribbons from my stash, and then some blue velvet from my stash as well. Oh, and I added some gorgeous little clay flowers that my friend Maggie White sent me down here on the bottom. They're so pretty. I love those. So thank you for those, Maggie. And yes, some eyelet trim, which is from Julie's store as well. So that's basically the front page. And then hopefully I can film this in one go, but we'll see. The first page here is Snow White. And again, these images are not Disney based. They're from different artists that I found online. This page here is of Snow White, and you can see this is after she's had the poison apple and all the dwarves are gathering around her. You can see them all behind her there. So what I did here was I picked up on the color tones again in the image, which was, you know, taupes and browns and beiges and creams, and I did the page in those colors. I also added this little mirror charm because, as you know, the famous line from Snow White is "Mirror, mirror on the wall," and so I added that there. I've got some rose colored bling here, which should be in the Kraftsupplies4U store soon. I think Julie has these, but if I did get this from the Shabby Chic boutique team, so I'm not sure if Julie's got these or not, but hopefully she'll get them back in if she doesn't. This trim up here is from my stash. This GIMP trim I love is from Julie's store, as is this trim here, this little crocheted trim, and the eyelash trim that's underneath that. So I've actually layered 4 trims here at the top. And then the little white GIMP was from Amy. Thank you, Amy. This beautiful trim down here, my friend Lily gave me. Some seam binding. This was from my stash. The flower was from my stash. And all I did really, again, I put some batting behind the image just to puff it up a bit. I really wanted them to stand out. They're not huge images. I really wanted the lace to be the star of the show, but you know, I wanted the theme to be of fairy tales. And then I've done more dangle trim from my stash, and this is like a crocheted piece that I had in my stash as well. Just the end of a doily there. And this crisscross trim is from Julie's store. I absolutely love this. It's so pretty. Just amazing quality trim she has in her store. So that's that page. And then over to this side, and this is Cinderella, this page. And as you can see, it's another big page. This is a picture of, let me see if I can get that in camera right there. There we go. Cinderella and her fairy godmother, and she's turning the pumpkins into the coach for her there. And again, these are not typical images. So what I did here was I created my own trim using some vintage trim from my stash. Let me just see if I can adjust my camera slightly. I made my own trim here. I used some vintage trim from my stash, and I gathered it, and at each gather I added, these are some vintage pearls from a necklace I took apart that I found at the thrift store, so I just gathered that here to sort of represent, you know, as she's going from rags to riches in some way. I used sari ribbon over here just to represent how she goes from rags to riches, and some handmade flowers that I did. And this was a rosette trim from my stash and some bling from my stash. This little flower trim here and the pearl trim underneath are from Kraftsupplies4U. Let's see, and then I've used them again up here at the top. And this I have had in my stash, this brooch, for so long, and I just found it to be, I found it in a thrift store and I just thought it was the coolest thing, but I could never find the right project for it. Well, this was it. If there was ever a time to use it, this was it. So I used this brooch here, and it's a hand with a little wand. It's all blinged up. She's got a blingy ring and a bracelet. I also used this little charm, which is also from Kraftsupplies4U, and the little pumpkins down here, which Julie will have in her store very soon to represent all the pumpkins from Cinderella. And I've just again layered things from my stash. There's some more vintage lace up here from my stash and things like that. This dangle trim and the blue trim is from my stash, and then more of that vintage wedding trim under here, but I tea-dyed it that time. So that's that page. And then the next page, this is one of my favorites because I don't work with reds and burgundies very often. So I decided to go outside of the box a little bit and do it and give it a try. So these next 2 pages have a lot of burgundies and reds and very rich colors in them. So what I did was I again used some more of the wedding trim under here in white, some vintage eyelet from my trim, and I just ran some sort of burgundy colored velvet trim through the eyelet that I had in my stash. And then that's the image of Little Red Riding Hood. There you go. And I layered on some of this beautiful trim from Julie's store that's back here, this one. This one was from my stash with the flowers on it. And this little one here is from Julie's store as well. That's one of my go-to favorites now with all these little flowers on it. It's so pretty. I just love it. And I made a little seam binding bow with a little doodad there and there. And then over here I just layered up some doilies from the mixed doily pack from Julie's store and just added some red bling. And then I put more of that vintage eyelet here with the burgundy velvet trim. And that's that page. This page over here is Beauty and the Beast, another one of my favorites. And I really love this page because I just love the rich color tones in here. So what I did was I added some really fun things here. Down here below, I hope you can see it, is a trim that Lily sent me, which I just love, and it was perfect for this page. And it's actually like a netting, and it has fur on the bottom. Fake fur, of course. I would never use real fur, but it's just like a little fur trim. So I thought that was kind of neat to represent the beast and his fur that he has. And this trim here and this one above it that's beaded are both from Julie's store. I love these two trims. They're just beautiful. And this little heart trim is from my stash. And then I layered up several of Julie's doilies from the mixed doily pack and made this doily flower here. And then I added these little leaves that I got from my friend Maggie White. Thank you, Maggie. And I layered those there, and a little leaf that I got from my friend Kim Lippincott. Thanks, Kim. And I added some trim here and some vintage pearls. Here's the crown that is from Julie's store that I showed in my DT package. These two hearts were from Amy Love, so thank you, Amy. Cameo from my stash, and these fibers my friend Lily sent me, and they just have a little bit of a sparkle to them. And then this trim up here at the top, this beautiful Venice trim up here is from Julie's store as well. So that's that page, and I did make a little bow with more of the tea-dyed bridal trim, and then I added some little rosette flowers at the bottom from my stash. And then I brought the bridal lace up the side here. And now, yeah, and a little clay flower from my friend Maggie. So that's that one. Now this page is very, very colorful, but I love this color, and I had to kind of go there. And I was thinking of my friend Lily when I made this, because this is a Norwegian fairy tale, and it's called East of the Sun and West of the Moon. And I absolutely adore this image. So that's what my color tones were. And I love teal and aqua. I absolutely love those colors. So I went there. I figured no better time than now to do it. So that's what I did. So I added some trim from my stash here, and then this is from Kraftsupplies4U, this beautiful aqua colored tulle trim. And let's see, the little butterflies here are from Kraftsupplies4U, as is this little trim here, this little dainty trim. I think Julie will have that back in her store soon. And I just added some little bits of silver bling. The silver trim, I believe, is in Kraftsupplies4U. That was from Amy Love's store that Julie bought the inventory from, so I'm hoping she has that back in stock for you guys. These flowers are from my stash. I made a little banner here with some vintage trim just to put the name of this fairy tale on, because it was quite long, so I made a little banner going across there with my little ribbon rosettes there. This is a flower that I made right here. And I made quite a few of these. And I backed it with one of Julie's doilies, and then I've used some beautiful eyelash trim that my friend Amy sent me. Thank you, Amy. And some seam binding and another little bow up here. And I know it's bright, but I absolutely love this color. I love white and aqua together. It's one of my favorites. So that is that page. And again, the image is stuffed. And then here we go to the last page, which is, of course, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Can't have a fairy tale book without that. So that is the last page. It's getting very hard to hold, but anyway, let's see what we can do here. So for this one, I added more wedding trim on the bottom, and I made this big doily flower here. Just some bling, and I layered more of Julie's doilies on, and at the bottom here I have added a dangle trim from Kraftsupplies4U, another, that was my cat, Venice trim from Julie's store, and this beaded one that I'd used previously. And I had this trim in my stash. I think somebody gave it to me a long time ago, and it was just sewn together, and it had some pearls, so I did that. But I layered 3 of Julie's little doilies here to represent the 3 bears, and I put little heart sliders with a little ribbon right here. And of course you can see the image there of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Let me try and get closer so you can see it. Whoops, there we go. And I've got this beautiful sort of Angora fiber here that goes all the way around it to represent the fur, and I got that from my friend Lily. And I used a little piece of the dangle trim here and a little flat back pearl. And then at the top I've got more of Julie's beautiful laces, and I stacked up some appliques from my stash, and then a little flower that my friend Amy gave me. And that's that page. Now, let me get to the back. The back page I did something a little bit unusual too, and I just am getting it here. I made a pocket page on the back. And the reason I did that is because I just wanted to add one more fairy tale, so I'll show you the pocket first. Again, there's more beautiful trims from that dress. This beautiful bridal applique is from Julie's store. I absolutely love it. I use it on everything. So I've layered that across the bottom, and I made a little pocket out of a doily, and of course I put my label on there, and I put more of that beautiful bridal trim there, and then some of this trim, which Julie did have in her store. I don't know if she'll be getting it back in, but this is one of my favorite trims. I absolutely love it. Put that across with some flat back blings from my stash, and this I've had for ages. It's a really long doily flower that Julie had in her store when I designed for her before, and I added one of her ribbon roses there, and then on the end, the tail ends, I just wrapped some more of that bridal trim just to finish it off. So that's on the end of those tails, and then I put more of it up here. And then this is also from Julie's store, this trim here. So it's got a nice deep pocket here. And inside the pocket, what I did was I made my final fairy tale, and I made it into a tag, and this one is Rumpelstiltskin, which I think is my friend Amy's favorite fairy tale. So I think that's why I used that as my inspiration. So what I did here was the same sort of process. I made a fabric tag. I used this cool image of Rumpelstiltskin, and I layered on lots of gold trim from my stash, and I used the white tulle trim from Kraftsupplies4U and one of the dangle trims from KS4U. I put on some gold sequins just to make it blingier, because of course he's spinning gold, and a couple of stick pins that I made from my stash. And then the back is just there. That's the back, just with some trims. And I made this shabby little bow over here, and then of course I added the little crown from Julie's store right there. And he just tucks right inside the little pocket at the back, like that. And then for the spine, I used this beautiful trim from Julie's store, which is like a crosshatch pattern, and I layered 4 of them on there, and then I just ran my gray velvet ribbon through that, and that just did the binding up nicely. So that was simple and easy to do. So I know it's a big project, but I really wanted to do something fun and different and something I'd never done before, and this was it. So if you have any questions about my fairy tale book, please let me know. I would love to hear it. I hope that you like my project. So please stay tuned for my next DT project, and please check out the stores, which the links will be down below, and also our blog as well. Thanks everybody for watching, and take care. I hope you have a nice day. Bye bye.